Welcome to Listen by Gene Ginsberg. This audio experience and podcast is all about social media, digital marketing, entrepreneurship, and interviews with top entrepreneurs in the digital and social space. I am your host, Gene Ginsberg, digital marketing expert, #1 best-selling author, and award-winning entrepreneur. I will be sharing with you strategies, tips, and tactics on how to grow your business and your social media following. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, Gene Ginsberg here. Welcome to this episode of Listen by Gene Ginsberg. Very special guest today. Super excited to be chatting with Reid. How are you?
Good, Gene. Thanks for having me. Doing very well. Happy holidays.
Awesome. Happy holidays. I think by the time this is going to be aired, it's going to be right after the holidays, but we're just letting you know we're recording right before the holiday. So awesome. Thanks for being here. Super excited to chat with you today. So give our audience a little bit of a context. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, that's, my background, Gene's pretty interesting, pretty diverse. So my background started off really as I was going to try to become a professional golfer. That was kind of my thing, going into golf school. Learned pretty quick that golf school wasn't really what I wanted. I think we all do that growing through school of what we do and we don't want. Switched over to business. Next thing I wanted to do was become a stockbroker. Got an internship as a broker. Realized I didn't like that either, So I did the next best thing, and that was join the military. So I joined, and I was a submariner in the Canadian Navy.
Lots of trial and error. It looks like you're just doing a lot of different things, and
it totally was totally trial and error. It was just trying to find, see what it really kind of stuck and what really called, because I didn't really know. I think a lot of people know from a young age. I definitely did not know what I wanted to do. So I finished 4 years in my contract with the military when I met my beautiful now wife and realized I needed to do something when I got out. So I became a recruiter, like a headhunter, did that for a little while. And then I found myself in the world of content, which I really found my calling at that point. And so I worked for a platform where we connected writers with clients and really found the love of storytelling. And so I moved from there, worked at a few different agencies, and now I've found myself to my own venture, my own company, Stretch Creative. So everything kind of bringing that together of my background in sales, working in the agency world, my background with headhunting, finding talent, and then my background in the military of just being very disciplined. All of it's kind of come together into who Chris Reid is today now.
Wow. That is a very diverse background, but a lot of guests on this show have very diverse backgrounds. Like I have to say, I had somebody who was a guest. He was a police officer in South Africa and then became an entrepreneur. Another lady from Singapore, she was like Miss Singapore, became an entrepreneur. So I mean, very diverse backgrounds here. This is awesome. I love learning about this. And I didn't know there was this thing that's called golf school.
Yeah, so it was like golf school. Really, it was more from like the management perspective, how to run a course as well.
Oh, okay.
And then
not necessarily how to be like a professional golfer, more how to like run a course.
Yeah, so I was kind of going both paths, but I've really realized that golf was more of my love to escape life and take that break, and I didn't want to make it my life. I found there was a bit of conflict there. So
absolutely. Wow. So very diverse background, lots of different things going on, but that's normal, right? Like when I was growing up, I remember in high school, I wanted to be a doctor, and I had no idea in the universe that I occupy right now that I would be here being a marketer and an entrepreneur. So I guess, we all have that at a young age. We don't really know what we want to be doing. So I can absolutely relate to that. So tell us about your business now.
Yeah, so Stretch is I like to call it a digital story studio. So what we do is, we work with like emerging to enterprise brands, really kind of articulating their brand story down through the piece of content they do, whether that's through words, whether that's through design, even doing some cartooning for a few companies. But a big belief of like, what really Stretch is built off of, the ethos. I know there's a lot of agencies that do a lot of content. Obviously, this isn't a new thing. The reason why I built this, though, is my background working for one of a freelance platform. I really felt that creatives really, especially freelance writers, got the short end of the stick. They were often kind of used and abused, left out of the dark, only needed when they needed them, weren't ever got that support that you would get necessarily as an in-house personnel. Mm-hmm. So my first hire at Stretch is we have a leadership coach on staff, and she works with every single one of our freelance creatives, not only to support them on a professional level, but how do we help them understand their own personal story better? And if we can help them articulate their own personal story, being who they are, the goal is for them to help articulate brand stories better. So that's through emotional intelligence. That's through a lot of this development. So we're really a people-focused company, and the content isn't the product. Our people's the product, and the content's the outcome of our product, the people. And so we're very much really kind of focused on changing the way freelancers are really worked with from agencies and so forth.
Awesome. And I love what you're talking about here, because storytelling, that's a big piece of marketing that so often entrepreneurs miss the mark on, right? And people love hearing stories. Like that's really how we grew as a civilization, right? Like as humans, we would sit around the fire, share stories, and that's just like almost in our DNA. So having this kind of service where you actually kind of pull that story out of your clients, I think is amazing. So tell us how you work with your clients.
Yeah, it absolutely is true. I think my belief is story is really the bridge to information. That's how people bring information back, is stories, that bridge that helps kind of make that path. So the way we work with folks, clients, is a lot of our primary focus is on with e-commerce brands, whether that's, like I said, emerging to enterprise side. And really with a major focus on the PDP, the product description page. And I really believe there's a disservice that brands do on this page for their consumers. They're often just describing products, about materials and so forth. And what we do is we look at, like, who is their consumer, what matters to them, why were products designed? They weren't designed because of a certain upper sole or rubber. They were designed because they were solving a problem. And that problem is often coming back to a story that their customers have either said or they've identified. And so as we start to look on that PDP, we want to understand, like, what is the story of that product? How does your brand story come down to that product? And how does that then help reassure your customer that they're buying the right thing from you? And it's not so much selling the customer, but really reassuring them. So it's just kind of taking that time to understand, like, who they are, interviewing folks of why are they designing particular products. And so that when they spend all this money and all this effort to drive traffic to this page, like, really the most important page in e-commerce is the add to cart page, is what we want. Right. You're getting all the effort to get to that page. Now we wanted to get them to then click that button. And it really is this piece of content that's been so underutilized, afterthought, and often are just left with, this is a cotton t-shirt, or this is a shoe that we love. Like, it's just, I don't know. It just boggles my mind. There's a lot of amazing brands that just don't seem to really get this right.
Oh, I agree with you. This happens.
And we have these other brands, like these digitally native vertical brands, that are just crushing it because they know story. They're built off a story. Their product is based off the story they have. They're not building products, they're building products around their story, not stories around their products. And I think that's a big difference, right? So yeah, that's kind of our main focus in terms of storytelling.
That's amazing. This podcast is brought to you by the Digital Marketing Method monthly group coaching program, your methodology for growing your business and your social media following. Join me and my group of supportive entrepreneurs and learn how you can grow your business and your social media following, where we cover topics such as Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, email marketing, and so much more. Go to dmgroup.online, dmgroup.online. So one of the things I like to ask our guests is, for the entrepreneurs and business owners that are listening to this podcast, what is something that they can do today that about storytelling, and if they have a business, what can they do now? It's an actionable item for them to actually think about. How do you create a story for your brand? Just like something really quick, and something that entrepreneurs can take it back into their business now.
Yeah, I think the big thing, it comes back to some of those TED Talks, right? It's just with like Simon Sinek is really the why, and really understanding the why. It's not so much the what, the how, but when you understand like really that why is because of a story. That's why you do something. There's a story behind that. So I think, not that the what and the how aren't important, but like bringing that major focus to the why of like, why are you there? Why are you helping people? Focusing on that and then leading into kind of the what and the how after that, and incorporating all three into story. So it's not just about the why, because the why is great, but if you can really articulate the why, the what, and the how in that story, that is like what's going to really, really connect home with everybody, because it's like, you just articulate a whole lot better that way.
Right. No, that's awesome, because it's true. Like we need to hear that why a lot of times in order to really understand why we're buying the product, right, or the service or
Totally.
whatnot. So I love that, and I don't hear so much. I don't see a lot of companies like yours doing this kind of specifically storytelling. I guess service, or that specifically is that story, like pulling that story out of your clients, because so often just entrepreneurs just like want to get into the marketing, want to get into like pushing their product out there, but so often miss the mark when it comes to like, great, yes, it's a nice t-shirt, but why should the end user buy it?
Totally.
So,
I mean, and especially now, like obviously we've had a really challenging year with COVID-19. For some folks, it's been a game changer in both directions, good and bad, right? But what it's really done, and for folks listening, I guess my thing is like, what it's really done is it's fast forwarded digital transformation by about 5 or 10 years.
yes.
And so brands, small, medium, large enterprise, are all faced with the same struggles of now we're swimming in a very, very busy pond or ocean, because everyone has to go online to be seen. No one's, people aren't going downtown. They're not going nearly out as much. So to be seen, you have to be online. And people connect to brands. Like you look at folks like Patagonia. Like, why do people love Patagonia? They have great product, but it's about like who they are, And like the more these people can really articulate who they are, what they're going to find, I believe is, we'll call it their tribe or their people or their folks, they will come to them because now they're feeling that they're part of something. And that's what we're even starving for more in this now post-COVID is we are all isolated, and we've had to be like literally, and I think emotionally and spiritually are very isolated from a lot of things. So this is a really great opportunity, if you can do it right, to find those people, whether they're new or old, that are part of that, and really bring them in and feel like they're part of something other than just themselves behind a computer, either looking for work or trying to work by themselves,
Right. Absolutely. So that's actually a good segue into my next question. As you mentioned, of course, COVID and the challenges, but how are you seeing brands change? What's been the biggest change that you're seeing with clients in the last year?
Yeah, the big thing is, I mean, and fortunate for us, the big thing is like, given that we work with a lot of like direct to consumer brands, they're having to shift to go, we can't necessarily win anymore. Like our bread and butter isn't just through retailers and wholesale. We need to figure out how do we connect to our consumers directly, because all these stores are closed or they're like very limited to getting people in, and people are scared to go out. So what they're figuring out is like, how do we then again talk to our consumers? So like, we shouldn't just rely on that they're going to keep coming back, because there's all these other emerging, digitally native brands that are coming up that are winning their business because they're figuring out ways to connect with them through content. Right. So what we're seeing is that these brands are having to go, pause, we got to figure this out. And we can't just throw content out there and hope that it sticks against the wall, like throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping it sticks. We need to actually do this properly and really figure out who we're talking to. And I think they really have to step back and look at like who their audience is and why does their audience actually care about them, and start to speak to that,
Right. Absolutely. I love that. That's fantastic. And then I always like to close out the podcast with one last question. And that is, what is your prediction for the future? And I know it's a very loaded question. It could go many different ways. It could be specifically your industry, or it could be self-driving cars, AI, terraforming Mars, whatever, however you want to take it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is super loaded, but I like loaded. Where my head goes to that, Gene, is I think the future of just humanity is one or two ways. I think it can go really bad, and I think it will really good. And I'm thinking it's gonna go really good. I think people need to start really understanding emotions better. And I think the future is gonna really make people to do things well, to sit back and go, who am I and how do I handle all this? Because we've been deprived for many years of trying to deal with that. And we're starting to see a lot of problems. And so a big belief of like just mental health. And I hope that the future has people being okay to deal with that, because it's going to be a fun and rocky road like it has been for the last century. And the next year is going to bring a lot more technology in. And with that, more human disconnect. So I hope that the future holds more connection for humans, for deeper and more meaningful relationships with each other, businesses, consumers, peer to peer, all of it. So
That's a wonderful way to end on this podcast. I love your message because it is true. We're all humans and we all need those relationships, and a lot of times, and especially lately, it's just been I guess I would say things have been fiery, right? And a lot of
absolutely.
disconnect has been occurring. So I agree with what you're saying, and I hope that is what holds for the future. And of course, one last question is, how can our audiences get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest way I think folks can get in touch is my biggest platform is LinkedIn. So they can catch me on LinkedIn /the Chris Reid. It's not an ego thing. There's just a million of us out there. So it's linkedin.com /the Chris Reid.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Great conversation. And yes, we look forward to having you on again sometime in the future as a
Yeah,
returning guest. So thank you for being here.
really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.